Hello, everybody. I'm here today with Margot Kosh. She's a meditation teacher at the Mendicino County Jail here in California. And we've been out here all week with the Unconditional Freedom Program and the Guards to Guardian Program, and met the sheriff and got a tour of the jail. And then we went to the largest women's prison in the United States, and we had a tour out there, and we talked to officers out at that state prison. So we've been on both sides of the house. And in my travels, I've met program directors and people that are doing different things in the jails and the prisons out here. And I'm trying to get to talk to each and every one of them if I can before I leave. And that's why I want to talk to you today, Margot. I want you to, first, if you don't mind, introduce yourself to us.
I will. My name is Margot Kosh, and I have been teaching meditation at the Mendicino County Jail. I have a long background in that. I'm lay ordained in the Zen Buddhist tradition and have been sitting what we call Zazen for about 40 years. So I have a long background in meditation, and I was also a teacher in schools for 26 years. I had my own school for a while and specialized for about a dozen of that in learning resources. So I worked with people with various styles of learning and disabilities.
And when you go out to the jail, what does your program offer the incarcerated people at that jail? And then how do they respond to your program?
Well, what I offer here is what I cannot imagine a jail or prisoner anyone incarcerated not having, which is some skill and experience, practice in sitting meditation, sitting by oneself, calming the mind, and investigating their own thinking and getting insights into their own thinking.
Well, I can understand how that makes sense, because if I'm in jail or prison, I'm alone a lot sometimes in that cell or just sitting there. So I want my mind to be on some type of positive track and not a negative track. So I would think that your program would help teach them how to gear themselves for positive thinking.
Well, the interesting thing, and particularly I think actually in all Buddhist traditions that I know of, the emphasis in meditation is on recognizing how the mind works. Yes, calming it, but that's in order to hopefully gain greater insight to oneself. So when we think, if one sits down, if you sit down by yourself and you start thinking, you're going to have 1,000 thoughts. It's like what I compare it to is having a snow globe that's been shaken up, and there's all of these flakes flying around, and you may like some of them and not like some of them, and think some are good and some are bad. And the point is not so much replacing the bad with the good, but in recognizing the process, learning how to slow it down, learning how to calm oneself down, calm down the thinking, so that you really can get greater insight into how this all works and how the body and the mind are connected. And that can be an extraordinary experience.
Have any of the incarcerated over there talked to you about their experience?
Yeah.
Positive and...
Yeah, it's actually knocked me out. I didn't know that I was going to have such a positive response from it, but this is a group of people who are really hungry for something to quiet their minds, and also to be able to see their thoughts not in a negative or a positive perspective, to be able to just watch them without so much judgment, and get to know something about themselves that's essential. So it's not the criminal act, the behavior, what someone else thinks of them, but who they are essentially, which, I personally believe we all have that excellent, genius, good essence. Just gets,
Now, how does let's say an inmate wants to get into your program, is there certain criteria they have to meet? Does classification, of course, I would assume classification would be involved somewhere in there. How do they get in there? Are there some that are not allowed to be in there because of certain crimes?
Well, I've been working with the Unconditional Freedom Project, and I come in as part of that. So I've taken worked with the incarcerated population who comes to a class, say, who comes to one of the art of soul making classes, and they're there for that. And then I'm introduced as a meditation expert.
So I think I see what happens. They've already decided who's going to be there.
Right.
You're going there and doing the educating, and they've picked who's going to be in there.
I'm part of the class. They don't have any choice, and we have some really funny exchanges too. You asked me how the prisoners take to that,
right?
The inmates take to the program, and we're quite honest about. I'll say, you sit down. The posture may not be comfortable. You may not be comfortable. You may feel like getting up after 30 seconds. You have no idea how long 30 seconds is. We're going to do it for a little longer than that, and you may just think it's dull as dirt. Is my expression for it. But it also gives me an opportunity to remember in myself why I do, how it's benefited my life, and to try to express that and model that as best as I can. And they understand very quickly. They certainly understand the value of quieting their minds. And yes, the responses that I've gotten from them have been, some of them have been extraordinary, really extraordinary. I had one group of men, and one of the men went all around the circle afterwards, and about 10 men, and after we'd sat for a short period of time, it was still long for them. People don't usually just sit down and not move for 5 or 10 minutes.
Right.
And after we had gone around, after we'd been sitting, and I said, can you share just something of your experience of this? And had a lot of different responses, but the one that stuck in my mind was one man who said, I'm so used to sitting, just every time it gets quiet, I hear the laundry list of all the things I've done wrong in my life going through my head. And he said it stopped. It was just for a little bit, but he said it stopped and I was quiet. And
reflecting back on things he's done wrong, and
which is, of course, part of the whole experience of being in prison, being incarcerated. But for him to also discover that he could have a moment of quiet, and that he could just sit with himself in that environment where you just sit.
It gives him a place to go, and of course I'm a lay person at this, but it gives them a place to go in their mind and an outlet to get it out, kind of, in a way. Think about it, reflect on it.
But to accept themselves too.
And accept themselves.
Yeah, because that's the hard part, when you you not only are reminded by your environment that you've done something that's completely socially unacceptable or dangerous, but also playing it through your own mind repeatedly. There's a point at which that's not going anywhere. It's just making things harder, and things are hard for them as it is.
Right.
And so to find that relief in there, I think, is tremendous. And they are some of the most receptive and appreciative audiences I've ever
Right.
Practitioners.
And the sheriff is that we met the sheriff, and we know he's on board big time with the whole program, the unconditional freedom, the guardians, the warden out there at the women's prison is also receptive to both programs, and it's catching on. We have a small spark going, but the spark is getting bigger. We've got North Carolina, Alabama, and Mississippi with some wardens and sheriffs that are interested. And I see this, what you're doing, the other programs in the Unconditional Freedom Program, I can see it going from a small flame to a bigger flame as we keep moving forward.
Yeah, I hope so. I really hope so. And I really particularly moved by the Guards Guardian program, and think that this is a tremendous contribution and really important piece to this. Without that program, I don't know if the whole concept, the whole mission would work.
You're absolutely right, because we have to be connected with your program. All the programs have to be connected. Management has to be on board, or it's a failure. And then the correctional officers have to be on board, because if there's one link in the chain that's broke, then we have a problem.
Right.
But I want to tell you, I thank you very much for coming in today and being with us. I always leave it open. Is there anything else that I didn't ask or I should have asked, or anything you want to say?
I could give a pitch for a speaking program that I'm trying to get.
Give a pitch for the speaking program for the incarcerated, right?
It's it's an unusual program that really I had it for a time in the schools, worked with middle schoolers, and I'm working with adults now. And I think we're calling it Soul to Soul, but it is more, in a sense, reminding or teaching people how to listen, really listen to each other, which I think is a skill that's getting lost in our culture.
I think so too.
So, yeah.
I even have trouble with that.
Everybody does.
Yeah.
It's incredibly gratifying to be able to have an experience of that, to be able to speak with people openly and feel safe and contained within that, and practice listening. So,
well, I like it. I think a speech program is great as well, because when they leave the jail or leave the prison, they need to be able to not be afraid to go out and talk. They need to do interviews for jobs.
That's true.
That's a speech in a way. You're going to have to present yourself, and so I think that's great. And we're going to get that word out there as well.
Great, and I got to warn you, I want to get it in with the COs too. So.
Well, no, perfect. You want to get the speech. Yes, and many of us in law enforcement are like, except for me, I don't know, but there are many in law enforcement that are like, I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to deal with anything, and it's part of the things because of the stress and the pressure at work, and I just don't want to deal with it anymore. But I think it would be great for the COs to get speech classes as well. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah, it's I think that it's critical. It's critical for people to be able to speak. You know, there's still the fear of public speaking is still statistically
everybody needs
scarier than death, which
everybody could use public speaking. It's a benefit. Thank you so much for being with us today. And I appreciate you, and it was a great week with you folks out here.
Great. It was a great week with you as well. We were so delighted to have you here.
Thank you.
Both of you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.